Thank you for indulging me while I adjust the camera here a little bit so that you can see what's important instead of me or anything about the room or anything about that, because we're certainly not interested in the room. I'm not interested in me, and you shouldn't be interested in me. Hi, this is Lee again. This is the website of Sons Not Servants. That's straight out of Galatians 4:7 in the only Bible that you should be getting anything out of, which is the King James Version. And in all the consideration of every Bible and every translation, you should really stick to this one, because it has so much more in it. And if you actually study it, you'll get so much more out of it. And, I've told you before, I don't have an agenda. I've got a mission. And my mission is to expose the corruption and the demonic presence in the churches that have been there in a mega fashion ever since the beginnings of the United States, and ever since the beginnings of Europe, and trace them all the way back to Israel 7,000 years ago. The reality of things today in the United States is that 98% of the churches are demonic messes, or they are covert operations for people like the Jews or the Illuminati, or they're just downright criminal. There are other instances where, on rare situations, you will find that there is a rogue demon that has set himself up to have his own little empire, like Al Capone with horns. And there's a few of those around. There's a few of those for sure. There's a nutcase situation out in, I believe it's Plano, Texas, where the whole town is like the children of the corn. And then there's the real children of the corn, the Way International in Knoxville, Ohio. There's the hardcore Satanists of Marysville, Ohio, that are so sick that the Adonis-looking head of this group is reported to be able to seduce any girl that he can get to look into his eyes, that she will be willing to put out any kind of sex he wants within 5 to 10 minutes of conversation. She just will not be able to tell him no. And I've interviewed women, and women that are very experienced, extremely good-looking women who are very experienced at getting rid of men they don't want, or men that they're uncomfortable with. And the one that I interviewed especially was in very, we're talking a solid 9 looking blonde with a solid 9 body too. and she had no way to resist him emotionally. She finally said that there was a part of her that was terrified of him, and finally broke away from him, and when she got away from the conversation, he looked different. He looked like he wanted to kill her instead of wanted to marry her or something. This is one of the largest American witches' covens in the United States, in Marysville, Ohio. Or at least it was in the early 2000s. Okay, moving along to Dunn, North Carolina is also another one of the large witches' covens. It's a different style. New Bern, North Carolina, the home of American Wicca, including these sexual perversions and all of the free sex, all of the, not just tree hugging, I mean tree fornicating, let's all get around naked in a circle and lay there while, the girl takes 30 seconds with each guy that has an erection. They all lay on their back in a big circle, maybe 20 guys, and she goes from guy to guy and basically fornicates with him for 30 seconds and then jumps over to the next, while the others are naked, sky clothed as they call it, and they are saying their spells for the quarter or the season or the year, as it was. They call it developing the power or developing the intensity to when they finally, she goes, the last time she goes around, she apparently has each one of them climax and burst. They yell their spells out then when the men exhaust themselves. And I'm sure it's a big, great time for everybody, because I have taken Wicca classes, and I have seen some of the Wiccans, and there are some knockout, natural, beautiful women, and I have no interest in, I have no propounding of group sex, but I can see how somebody could get high and get involved in that just to be with that girl, just to be with some of those girls, because they're beautiful. I mean, they're the kind of girls that no older guy has any right, so to speak, to be doing that with. And excuse me. Then there's Beaufort, South Carolina, the home of American Voodoo. Then there's all sorts. There's 109 slavery-based churches throughout the Carolinas and northern Georgia, started by the mill owners. And all the slaves were kept in check by what they called Uncle Tom, they would pick out one slave which was willing to turn on all the rest. I guess the most famous was called Uncle Tom. And he would use voodoo, and he would use violence to keep all the rest in check. There's a very big, very famous slave camp in Arkansas, I believe it is, where you can still see to this day. I think there's 2,100 acres of slave camp, and the hex signs and things and the voodoo signs are still on the doors. You can see it. You can see where they used to whip them. All over the place. Then Wright-Patterson is the home of the aliens. Oh boy. And it's the home of a lot of other things, too. Plum Island, genetic research. Lincoln, Nebraska, underground facilities for synthetic humans. Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Catholic university that developed the beginnings, the basis for synthetic humans. Now the Vatican has spread Chrislam, the combination of the Christian and Islamic faiths. They have opened that in 33 states now that they have legitimized it. I say that laughingly and gaggingly. Islam should not be corrupted in their views. If somebody wants to be a practicing Islamic, the Catholic Church has no right to try to come up with Chrislam, which is a slur between the two and a ruination of both of them. But they have that. The Catholic Church also has, I believe it was 1991, they made a secret covert pact with the Israelis. It equates to a mutual peace and defense pact. A mutual defense and peace pact between religious groups. Because, as you know, the Vatican over the years had slaughtered more Jews than Hitler even thought about ever getting his hands on. Where do I go? The Way International, as I said in one other tape, got a wild revelation one day and sent out 22,000 people to corrupt or tear down the church. If whoever in the church wouldn't come over to their point of view, they had instructions to tear it down around their ears, so to speak, using spirits. And today, everywhere, you don't hear the Bible anymore. Not presented the way the Bible should be, not in context. You hear these lame piece of crap convoluted key phrases. I want to confess it to you, Billy, that. Some nutcase old preaching machine. And they are incensed about it. They're like my dad's parents and my dad was. Most people would have called them white trash with religion in the hills in West Virginia. And my dad wanted to be more than anything in his life. He wanted to act that crazy. He didn't want to have to be educated. He did not want to work. He did not want to talk normally. He wanted to be possessed. He wanted to be the little sniveling brat of his mother that beat up everybody and cursed everybody and made them bow down to his mother and made them give her free things. And he was the one that wanted to ruin the church when it was taken away from my grandparents, finally. And he was the one that died hating everybody, including me. And he was only clear for about 15 minutes before he died. He got totally clear. And that is a classic thing, that when the spirits are sure the wicked spirits are sure that the person is going to die, then they all leave. Their job's over. The theme of the devil is steal, kill, and destroy. If they can steal you, great. If they can't steal you, they want to kill you outright. It's that old Cain and Abel scenario. It makes them infuriated and incensed. If they can't kill you, then they want to destroy you. They become totally maniacal, twisted, sadistic, just wicked in every thought of how to get back at you. And they talk in these crazy key phrases that the damnable wicked spirits tell them. How they need to say these key phrases. I confess it to thy belly that. Take shook of my nablements. Oh, I have grown pregnant with the gospel of Old Holy. On and on and on. And they have their cliques. And nobody ever knows the truth or hears the truth unless you're part of that clique. And to get in that clique, you have to do something as rotten, wicked, and evil as they have. So it's like a biker gang. You got to go kill somebody. So if you try to tell anybody what goes on the inside, they can get you a death sentence just like them. Excuse me, the old choking scenario is going on. And they have secret societies. The Way International is networked all over the United States and 30 countries. Before I began my outright attack with them, when I caught up with who they are and what they were, and we couldn't part peacefully, then I found out that their network all over the world knew who I was, and I was on a wanted list by them. And they enlisted other churches where they had relationships, like the Baptist Church, especially. The Virginia Martindale family was heavily involved with them, since their son was one time the leader of them, L. Craig Martindale. He finally got caught having sex with his secretary after a long period of that, and evidently having whatever he wanted to with about anybody else too, and his wife caught him openly, and everybody else did, and the courts did, and finally they just couldn't stand the publicity anymore and got rid of him. But it didn't solve the problem. They have their secret societies. They solicit from the addicted and prostitute area of society so that they can turn them around and pimp them back out on the street, just in a different way, for a different reason, with maybe a more professional and less abusive pimp. But I guarantee you, by the time they inflict the psychological damage on these people, as of last year, there was 40 dead for trying to leave and trying to expose them. That's just in the last 8 or 10 years. 40 people dead. And I still remember when L. Craig Martindale stood up there and laughed in the middle of one of his big teachings, in the middle of one of his, in the big get-togethers, that so-and-so had refused to give him a lifetime commitment like she was supposed to, and he he had her promised to, so God killed her. In reality, they dogged her for almost a year and cursed her of spirits and everything else, and she finally committed suicide, and he praised God. He praised God for 15 minutes that God had killed that girl just like he prophesied that God would. That's pretty much where we parted company. And I got started really understanding how vicious they were, because all the old hardcore people applauded, I mean maniac applause, that she was dead for disobeying the holy hierarchy and the lifetime commitment of the Way Corps. You know, so you'll notice that also Kenneth Copeland used to be, until he passed away, Kenneth Hagin. Jerry Mafia Don Seville. Somewhat Jesse Duplantis. Once in a while, T.D. Jakes, and quite a few others like, what's the name of them? The Faith Healers, and the crazy, Rod Parsley, the real crazy guys, Oral Roberts, the nasal twanging evangelists, Trinity Broadcasting, who looks like a used car salesman and a redo of the Jim Bakker story, only run amok. These things they seem to be, how outrageous can you spit in the face of God and insult Him, and people will still hand you all their money. They'll still run the aisles. They'll still incense themselves to empty out their wallets to you. One of the teachers did this 45-minute teaching on why you shouldn't have credit cards and why you should get debt-free. Then he tried to sell them his DVD for $40 and said, "Give us your credit card numbers right now." I can't do that. You just told me to cut it up with the first pair of scissors I could get, so I did. These people, one of the Baptist preachers, preaching to several thousand people, I questioned him when he came down from the pulpit about something he said because it was so obviously wrong. This vile bastard gave me to understand that the Spirit was upon him when he was up there preaching, so he had no idea of what was said or what wasn't said. And I said, I looked at him, I said, "Are you serious?" I wanted a real answer. I didn't want you to just blow me off. And he said, "I'm not blowing you off. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, or what the heck you're talking about, or something." He got aggravated with me. He said, "I don't know what you're talking about. When the Spirit comes on me, I just preach. What I am just the instrument of the Lord." Oh yes, and that was enough for me. That was way more than I ever wanted to know. He let himself be possessed on a regular basis and let this damnable thing talk through him like a medium or channel. That's sick! God, Jehovah God's Bible says he's supposed to be worthy of death for that kind of crap. And who do you think's doing the preaching then? Every Wednesday and every Sunday, there is a demon up there doing the preaching to these several thousand people in this 22,000 member Baptist church. And he administers the place like a mafia don. Or used to, until we finally had nearly a knockdown, drag-out fight in the middle of the place, and I exposed a lot and left, and 2,500 other people left. They have since recouped, got a new preacher who is just a different kind of PR person. I don't think he channels spirits, so they're still angry that they don't get as much cash flow as they used to. I wonder why. They don't nearly court the homosexual crowd as much as they do either, or the old money as much as they used to, or the corrupt from all over town the way they used to. But, you know, the evangelists, you know, Kenneth Copeland was the one that was caught at it. He and Jerry Seville, James Robinson, Jesse Duplantis, I don't know if he was in on it, but they use seed money. You see these people running down with $100,000 or $1 million check and giving it to them. That's money that they keep amongst themselves. They might keep, and it sounds crazy, but they may keep $20 million amongst their little network, or, you know, their little syndicate, because it's seed money. When somebody sees somebody run down there with a check for $1 million, oh, they gotta try to come up and pledge 10,000 at least. That's the way they hype the crowd for money. And if you think that $1 million check ever gets cashed, wrong. It stays in the syndicate seed money. Or if it does get cashed, the next week that person, that preacher, goes to some big revival and he donates it to another preacher. He adds $100,000 to it and gives $1.1 million to good old Jesse, or good old Kenneth, or good old whoever. You know, and the Jews have been caught over and over again with John Hagee and others. Trying to remember the little guy that I just can't stand, that is on TV every day. I'll remember who it is. But they are a covert operation of the Jews, because the Jews have still got it in their heads that the Jews are seniors to the Gentiles, and the Gentiles are just basically, if they haven't been converted, they're still just soulless cattle. And I am so sick of hearing that the Gentiles are no better than soulless cattle. They are goyim, G-O-Y-I-M, I believe it is, to the old Jews. And yet these people will bludgeon the tithing, offerings, all this out of people all over the United States, because the code and the teachings of the Torah say that the leaders are to take tithe from the people. They tithe the people. It's not a voluntary thing. It's an IRS thing. They take tithe, or there is a punishment. There is an absolute punishment. So their brain says, these darn cattle in the United States owe us the tithe. So, get out there and get it for us. And they do. They make an estimated $1 to $2 billion every year out of the pockets of the people of the United States straight to Israel. And it may go to some worthy cause, it may go to somebody. Whatever it does, it relieves the rabbis from ever parting with their own money, so that they can spend it on the $80 billion new temple they want to build, that they just have to happen. Oh, there's this. They just also have to slaughter Islam before they can do that, though. So they also buy weapons with it, like the Iron Dome. The United States denied Israel Star Wars weapons because they didn't have $88 billion. So, since after they brooded about it for a little while and they had their hissy fit and they found out that no meant no, they tried to steal them. They tried to steal the technology, and that didn't work. They got caught. Madder than 40 hells itself, madder than 40 kinds of Satan, because they got caught and stopped from taking it. Mossad got caught and stopped. So they went back, and guess what? The Federal Reserve handed them $1.2 trillion with no paperwork. Not even signed a note. And if you watch the hearings about it, the Senate didn't even get one answer, not one straight answer out of anybody. There is $9 trillion with a T, trillion dollars missing out of the Federal Reserve funds, which are your tax dollars. So, the reality is, when the Jews couldn't finagle it or steal it, they went through the Jewish head of the Federal Reserve and the Jewish committee, who for the most part runs the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, which rigged the presidential election and committed 4 murders, they have assassinated apparently 5 presidents and officials to stay in power. So they just decided that they would hand over $9 trillion to whoever they damned well please, and dare the United States questioned them on where it went. It went to good source. It went to good places like the Iron Dome defense system. For if the United States had wanted the Iron Dome for Israel, they'd have paid for it. Embezzlement and thievery is thievery. This thing that the Jews have to be protected and taken care of no matter what. If this whole planet has to go down the drain, the Jews will be on top. No. Damn that crap. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Stealing $9 trillion is wrong. That's like, several $1,000s per person for the whole United States. No, we wouldn't have given it to them, so they just stole it. 1.2 trillion, which is a little note on a piece of paper that came up in the hearings. Israel, 1.2 trillion. No paperwork, no loan documents, no nothing. The arrogance of that whole thing is they deserve that money. Because the damn United States hadn't paid them tithes in 238 years. That's only a down payment on what the Israelis are owed by the Gentiles in the United States. And that's a quote from one source. That is a quote from one source. That is the mentality. They network all over. While they're doing this, we're still sending them all the money. And make note of the fact that the main street in Tel Aviv is Rothschild Boulevard. The Amstead, it gets so sick. Amstead Rothschild, the founder of his household, number one, wasn't even a Rothschild. He was a Bauer. He was a German. He changed his name supposedly for safety in the First World War. There's a whole long story. He hoodooed the Queen of England, and got ingratiated there. Loaned Charter $280 million to save herself in the First World War. Ingratiated that, and for that got to take over all the central bank and all of the resources of the UK. The man is Amstead Mayer Rothschild, also is the originator of the Illuminati and the New World Order. Hates the United States, hates Christians, and is openly Luciferian. Openly Luciferian. Okay? And everybody in the whole New World Order, they are sworn to be Luciferians. Mr. Kissinger, that ain't a practicing Jew thing to do. So anyway, that man is worth not Mr. Kissinger, the current Rothschild, the current House of Rothschild, is estimated to have assets of over 500 trillion with a T dollars. Almost every dollar of it from illicit, unscrupulous, and openly criminal activities that they deem are perfectly acceptable because it brought the Jews so much money for their coffers. And in the process, he came to be a world power himself. In fact, the House of Rothschild is basically the world power right now. The 13 bloodline families that go with that, there's a big spread in between, but there's at least a $1,000 trillion in actual money, in actual wealth things, in actual gold, oil, real money type things. $1,000 trillion in their hands. 33 men, 33 families. $1,000 trillion at least. And you don't think they maneuver it, and you don't think, when all hell started to break loose a year ago, and some of the bankers weren't willing to, I guess, take the hit, 31 of them in 2 weeks came up dead. Most of the time the people didn't even investigate it, wouldn't investigate it. Scotland Yard refused to investigate it. They tried to blow it off as, anything. A deranged guy with a bad marriage that jumped off the building. Well, he jumped off the building across the street, landed on the roof of the next building, lay there for 4 hours, and nobody missed him, and nobody saw him laying on the roof in front of a whole window full of offices and everything for 4 hours. That's only one of the stories. It goes to absurdity. All these secret societies, the Bilderbergs, are installing computer chips in the right hand of people all over the world, including now in our military. In India, in Mexico, in all the countries that are corrupt enough to work with them. The Bush family. Oh, the saviors of the Middle East. Oh, glory, glory, glory. That's the way John Hagee talks about them. They fought for the Jews, so they should be put on a pedestal. Pig, crap, and dog vomit. 3 generations of the Bush family go out to San Francisco 2 times a year and swear their life's work to a 45-foot tall statue of an owl who is the representative of Satan. And they act out burning of corpses for the human sacrifices they're not allowed to do. That, the Bush family, with one of them as head of CIA, then president, one of them as president, one of them might be president, and about 100 of the congressmen. What kind of a sick bunch of crap is that? A satanic presidency and Congress with setting over a Christian nation. I am dumb and blonde and all that, but something is wrong with that picture. Something is damned wrong with that picture. Then you got the military-industrial complex. The sick bastards who wouldn't build the atomic bomb without getting the best deal that was ever given to a bunch of cutthroat businessmen in their life to own the technology that came out of it forever. And now they spend their time with every kind of alien creature that you can think of, at Mount Shasta, at Dulce, New Mexico, under the water in Malibu, under the water in the Caribbean, at around the 8,000-foot trench there off of Andros Island. They spend their time at all the underground facilities at Omaha, Nebraska, at Lincoln, Nebraska. There's over 1,000 of them that our Vice President, Dick Cheney, and Halliburton kind of siphoned off $700 billion over the presidencies and the time he was there. $700 billion in black ops money and covert ops money that was never accounted for. There's no accounting allowed of that. To build underground facilities for something, and to take the old military bases and convert them to detention centers for somebody. Okay? And let's not forget the 10 million plastic coffins they bought that are being stored down in Alabama. And this was all networked. Dwight Eisenhower had to take I think it was the Third Army. He threatened to take the Third Army into White Sands, New Mexico, I believe it was. Or it might have been one of the beginnings of Area 51. When they first started Area 51, it ran amok. And he as president couldn't even find out what they were doing there. The German scientists came over. They brought their little alien buddies with them, all kinds, and they went out there, and my family member wrote a $1.4 billion check to start the base off, and which nobody ever accounted for, and they did that, and my relative didn't have to account for anything that was spent anyway, so who cares? So they started that. So a year or two after that, Eisenhower couldn't even find out what was going on. It took threatening to come out there with an all-out armored assault of the place before he could ever have a briefing on what was going on out there. It's reported that Forrestal, Secretary of the Navy, couldn't find it in his mind. He couldn't wrap his head around it. He flipped out when he heard the truth of what was going on out there. Eisenhower flipped out when he found out that there was alien beings, quote unquote, and they're doing all this technology, and that the military industrialists are basically running the country doing as they please. They're kidnapping people, they're experimenting on people, they're building UFOs, they're building wormholes, they're building anything they please, and spending trillions of dollars that nobody is ever going to account for, and nobody is ever going to tell anybody what they did with it, good, bad, or indifferent. Their periodic table of elements, instead of 127 or whatever it is now, only has about 200 on it. Their periodic table has about 60 or 70 more elements than ours does. And when they had a big fire out there at Area 51 and diseased and killed about 100 people that were working there, the courts were told that it was a matter of national security, and they never would divulge the chemicals that they had been exposed to and were dying of at an unbelievable rate. And the courts just said, oh, well, that's okay. how much do you think you can contribute to their care? And they said, well, we might give them $76 million or something. I think it was, you know, whatever's left in the slush fund this year, we'll give them. And that was it. A woman sued after that and tried to get more information. The FBI visited her and told her that if she created one more episode about it, she would be in jail for the rest of her life. For what? For what? Wanting to know what her husband died of at 40 years old? When a normally healthy man goes from robust, healthy 200-pound man to a 90-pound dying stick in 6 weeks? I'd say that's a problem. And from just being exposed downwind to some of the smoke from the fire that they had there. There's a problem with this, people. And these are the ones that the Catholic Church are wanting to invite down here on a wholesale basis, down here, up here, wherever. My understanding is that they come out from the inner parts of the earth and run around the galaxy, then come back here and go in at places like Andros Island and Malibu and places like that, you know, Mount Shasta, where there are areas that they can get underneath the crust of the earth. And it's sick. It is a sick mess. The reality is, these are probably the Anunnaki, the demons, the fallen angels of Satan, and Satan. And the beast, one beast comes from the land, one beast comes from the sea. Not too hard to figure out, is it? One of them comes out of the sea, one of them comes out, you know, from the land. So it all begins to come together. One of them comes from the governments and one of them comes from the aliens. Or one of them comes from the religious. The Catholic Church is already saying that they've got 2 guys that they're almost having to keep in jail at the Vatican because they're scared to death of them. They can't control them. They don't know what to do with them. They are scared to death that one of them is the son of perdition. And they can't do a thing with them. They can't control him because he just talks his way right out, goes right through them. You know, put them both in a nice monastery someplace away from everybody. Give them a research project like calculating the finite root of pi, and tell us when you're finished, guys. We'll send you your weekly allowance from now on. And on the way out, you tell them if they try to escape, put many, many, many bullets through their head. Then cut their heads off. Then cut up all their body parts and hide them all over the world under Bibles. You know? Don't mess with things like that. But the Vatican now admits to $15 billion worth of communication with aliens and inviting them down here and preparing the way for them. I guess because they think if they get to be the group that does it, they're going to be first in line for the rewards. And you'll find these people talking code talk. In Proverbs it talks about teaching with your fingers. Well, they make signs. You know, if a Baptist gets told off and he can't get his way about something, he sits there and goes, "Welp, welp, welp." He's not giving up on the issue. He's calling for a whelp, like what a mother dog does to a puppy when it gets permanent teeth too fast and can't nurse anymore, and she beats the crap out of it till it goes on its own. You know, it's whelping the pup. And of course, they just admitted that they're the old mongrel dogs, right? They're the old dogs. They're hounds of preacher. And they talk in these codes. The words you hear them preach don't mean the same things to you that they do to it does to them. None of it does. None of it. I assure you. There are key phrases and key words in all of it. Just like the operations of what's called their words be spirits. So whoever in the evangelists and everything, whoever is standing up there talking, it'll be like Pharaoh with his two magicians. There'll be two elders or whatever speaking in tongues or praying while he's preaching, that the spirits are invoked with every word that he says, and go out, and the spirits minister to all the hearers and layer them up with all sorts of wicked spirits, get them in bondage, they seduce them, you know, before you know it, you're giving your life savings to this idiot. The Way International used to brag about it. Benny Hinn is the guy's name. Big time. So does the little guy, the little dwarf guy, the faith healer. And I'll think of him in a minute. They all teach in half scriptures. They talk in key phrases and key, you know, code talk. And they're in one week-long teaching at the Way International, they taught over 300 operations of the spirits that the old-time evangelists used and they still use. That is black arts witchcraft, but it controls the people and it sure brings the money in. Man, you can take somebody that wouldn't give a preacher $1, and at the end of the day, they'll give you your wallet and tell you give it back when you're done with it. They'll give you your wife. They'll give you your darn teenage daughter. You can have it. You can have the keys to their car to drive it all the way in. Man, you learn this stuff, you got it made, man. There ain't a little teeny bopper virgin out there that can tell you no, or a hard case that can hold $1 back from you. And I guarantee it. I guarantee, as Jesse Duplantis might call it. Now, he's walked away from some of this in a recent history. Perry Stone doesn't seem to be somebody that is willing to get into this mess. But just about everybody else in history has been. The Sorillas. They've got, you know, a $500 million estate and mess down in Lancaster, South Carolina again. You know, Jim Baker got caught, but Jim Baker's right at it again. He's got a $500 million place down in Mississippi or someplace. Back at it again. And he would be probably somebody that would tell you, yeah, it's true. Of course it's true. How do you think somebody goes from being, having 35 cents in their pocket one day, and they run into somebody, right? Their demon comes up and approaches them, and they sell out to Satan. So by the time they preach their first sermon, they got an offering of $10,000 or $20,000 in their hand. From there, in the first year, like the werewolves, like Victor Paul Werewolf, in the first year, I think he made $10 million. But it's like Hitler. Hitler went from a house painter to the scourge of Europe in a year, maybe two. Technology jumped 100 years in 18 months. It's seducing spirits. It's wicked spirits in high places. And all of these spirits work together to network done what these wicked, vile bastards want to see done. The Church of Christ, Hillbilly, West Virginia, they use demons and the women, the hags as they call them. You know, their husband dies or something like that, or that, you know, whatever. They can't. Their husband's a drunk and doesn't make a living for them. So a lot of times they just kill them, or get rid of them, or throw them out, whatever. But then they got a whole house full of kids, and you know, maybe a couple generations of them to take care of. So there's story after story after story of them going out and summoning up a demon, having sex with it, and that demon is her wealth from then on. Then that old hag comes to power right then and there. Nobody disobeys the hag. Not and doesn't regret it. There's hundreds of stories of that. And there's all kinds of misshapen babies too. If anybody ever watched the X-Files, that thing about the Peacock family, that's suburbia, West Virginia, believe me. It goes on all over. West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky. You know, it's rampant. Mississippi, northern Georgia. Remember the movie Deliverance? It's real. It is real. The people like the Way International pay off the normal law enforcement, and you know, the mayor of New Knoxville, Ohio was a member of the Way International. So were the sheriff's department and stuff like that, to the point that they did as they damn pleased. They provided sex for the FBI and provided, different things. So they did as they pleased there, and they were always taken care of. I guarantee you they were. And I've talked to the sons of FBI agents when I was around there, and I got a an earful, let's put it that way. And I saw some of the most beautiful women in the world dating guys that weren't worth a crap looking, and dating them and putting out any kind of sex they wanted, any way they wanted it, any time they wanted it. And then these girls come back and teach the Bible. I don't know. Something's wrong with this picture. And you know what? The bill is up to about $4 trillion worldwide every year that is paid to these unholy sons of bitches for religion, for all the things that I'm talking about. We pay these people around $4 trillion every year worldwide for Satan, through all of his influences that we call Jews, Catholic, Allah, Islam, the Way International, the Baptist Church, all the evangelists, through all those sources, through all those things, Mormon is the biggest business concern west of the Mississippi. Has been for about 20 years. Even bigger than Boeing. Even including the black ops, it's still bigger than Boeing. And I guarantee you, I've been married twice and divorced twice, but my first wife was a Mormon. And when they didn't get a tithe, they sent out 2 leg breakers to find out why. And I almost had to kill one of them to stop him from taking my money away from me. And I put them both, I had them both arrested. And it was a 50-50 deal of whether I was going to live through it or not. But I raised so much literal hell about it and exposed it so far and wide that I think it scared them bad enough that they backed off and let me go. Put too much light on the subject. It's like that old analogy. The cobra running around in the middle of a football field is fine if the lights are off. Nobody in the whole place would know he was even there till he bit somebody. And he could just keep doing it. But that same cobra, let them turn the stadium lights on. And then, oh crap, he's stuck out in the middle of the football field. And everybody in there can see him. That's what I'm hoping for. To turn the lights on in the football stadium, people, and all of you see that damn signet cobra reared up in the middle of that field, just waiting to bite anybody and drag them down far enough that they need him. That's his whole deal. Drag the people down far enough that they need that bastard. Steal, kill, and destroy enough that he has more than they do. And if you're willing to pay the price to one of his minions like these bastards that I've been talking about, then, hey, you ready to have your chip installed yet? Your mark of the beast? You ready to have your mind-altering computer chip? Or, you know, you can have all sorts of things like set in your house, and Duke Power will refuse to even hook up electricity to your house. Gas company won't even bring gas to your house. If you have a house, because you can't get a mortgage, because they're going to run the money if you let them. If you let them, they will. If you don't, then we all got a fighting chance of getting out of this generation without the most horrendous mess you've ever seen. Personally, I think we're at 50-50. It could go either way right now. But I want to turn on the stadium lights, because 0.1% of the population of this earth is running the rest of it. And they're running it in the ground on purpose by the use of demons, by the use of the spirits of the dead, by the use of black arts, and by the use of science that should be forbidden, like synthetic humans, to carry these demons. because they can't get anybody, you know, they've used up all the possessables. Nobody else will let themselves be possessed, and they got plenty more demons. You know, the used demon lot isn't finished yet. It's still got a big surplus. So, this sick mess is right at the event horizon of the toilet bowl. It's already been flushed and the water's going around. We're right on the edge of it. We're right on the edge of a black hole, whatever you want to call it. But again, this book in front of you is the most hated thing there is. Study it, stand up for it, and I thank Jehovah God by the name of Jesus Christ that I have put petitions up before Him based on scriptures right out of there. So if they're ignored or they're overturned, then it's not my problem anymore. Because I did my part, and I did what I was instructed to do, and then you got no more to worry about. Then the problem is off of you and onto somebody else. And then I assure you, things in your life will at least improve. Study the book, follow the book. You know, the old thing of study the book. When a question comes up, open book, read book, do book, close book, and go on about your day. Thank Jehovah God in the name of Jesus Christ that it's taken care of, period. Go on, because it's not your problem anymore. And, you know, God says everything and everybody everywhere is going to be accountable to that book. At the end of things, and I can tell you, I've been resuscitated from the dead 4 times. And I will guarantee you, you go somewhere and there are other beings there, and there's a lot of conversation that goes on. And if you aren't, you know, if you want to grade yourself A, B, C, D, E, F, and no contest or whatever, if you are a C student of this Bible and above, C and above, I don't give you much of a chance. That's why I said only 14% of humanity is going to make it out on the first ship leaving, called the rapture. Only 14% of humanity is what is anticipated. The rest of everybody involved has to go through all that world of crap. Third World War, aliens, you know, commonplace all over the earth, rampaging, running things, and, you know, Civil War, 2.5 billion dead, and all that stuff. You know, then Satan gets put in prison for 1,000 years, the false prophet and the false teacher go to the lake of fire. Hey, you know, it's a mess. I don't know, you know, I question the sanity of any of the plan of it, but then again, I think the reality is going to be better for the believing people than it looks like it will be. Anyway, study the book, open it, read it, study it, find somebody who's decent and reliable to teach the more difficult parts to you, and then use it. it's the only defense you have in some situations. I have used it on people who were willing to kill me, or worse, and they walked away. I have been tortured. I've had my genitals burnt with electric shocks till I couldn't even tell, what parts of me looked like. I used what it said for healing and in prayer in this book. Inside of 10 days, they were almost healed. And I assure you, I have had full function of those for everything necessary ever since. They work fine, and I'm 65. I have had many situations of life or death, and I came out of it alive. My second wife used to say, "You've got a devil riding on your, or you've got the devil one step behind you and an angel riding on your shoulder, and I'll just be damned if I know how you've ever lived this long." There's the answer right there in front of you. I didn't even know what it said till I was 45, and I got some of the fog and demons cleared. But I always knew inside that there was something that I believed in, because I chose God and Jesus at 5 years old. But you don't really choose Him for real till you get in the book and you find out that believing means taking action, and you start doing the book. God says if you do my doctrines, you'll know my doctrines. Then you begin to understand, this is right, this is wrong. This is right, this is wrong. This is good, this is bad, this is not so good, this is better. Then you begin to understand, then you get wise to what's coming up. Thank you. God bless you. I just thank Jehovah God by the name of Jesus Christ that all my petitions and all your petitions are up before Him, and that where His Word says it, that we have it because He said so, because He said all of His words are yea and amen, every promise, and that it doesn't take the devil's permission, and that it doesn't take you working all your life to get 10% of what you ask for. Not how it's supposed to work, folks. Not at all. That's how the devil would like it to work. Because in the meantime, you're supposed to be paying him a tithe and offerings and obeying him to let him fornicate with your daughter or your son. Which, by the way, is an abomination. Homosexuality, according to the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, is worthy of death. So, I'm sorry. I don't mean anything bad to them. I will not participate in gay marriage. I will not participate in gay churches. And I will not receive gay people in my house. At least not by choice. And so, I don't mean anything bad to them, but God says, touch not the unclean thing too. And there's a reason for it, because years ago I got to know gay people, and believe you me, there were not any without horrendous problems. And I thought I could handle them back then, and one of them almost killed me. And that's only one horror story. I can't tell you the times that I had to fight for my life not to be raped. In any event, you know, there are a lot of straight haters out there. And there's a lot of Satanistic gays out there. So, you know, be cautious. You don't have to be involved in something you don't choose to be involved in. And, you know, that's a part of what I'm saying too. You don't want to be involved in a church where that's the agenda. Get up, take your money, and walk. Out the door. Don't go back. Cut them off the telephone. Don't open the door for them. Tell them 2 John 10, have a nice day. Bye. Thank you. God bless all of you.